Hey, good morning, everybody, and happy Monday. This is the Home-Based Business Success Podcast, and we'll be right back after this. Hey, good morning. Happy Monday. Happy first day of the work week for a lot of people out there. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about how to start a home business from scratch. And what I'm going to go through here is a list of 3 steps that we went through when we were creating one of our more successful home-based businesses. And it's a simple formula. What I'm going to do is go through each step of that formula, and then we're going to flesh it out, and then we're just going to call it a day. But the 3 steps to this formula that I like to use in creating a home business is, first step, identify a problem that you can solve, and then come up with your solution. Second step, develop your solution and monetize your solution. And then the third step, once you got your solution figured out, once you know you can bring your solution to the marketplace, advertise your business. Let people know what you can do for them. So 3 easy steps here. Identify a problem you can solve, then monetize your solution, and advertise your business. Get yourself out there in front of your community that needs your help. Now, to give you a practical illustration of how we did this in one of our first home-based businesses, I'm going to go through, let's just go back about 16 years into the past, when I was first coming up with our first basic home-based business. And what I did is I looked at our neighborhood. I looked in our general community. We live in a beautiful rural area where you don't have very many people, but you've got a whole lot of retired folks living on fixed incomes. And these are people that used to live up in the city, they worked in the city, they earned their money up there, they retired, and then they wanted to move someplace else where the taxes were lower, where things were a little quieter, where they could be out in the beauty of nature and just live out their remaining years in peace and solitude. So that was my basic demographic that I identified in my area. And then I got looking, and I could recognize a few problems that those people would be having. And the first problem that I saw was a lot of these folks, they enjoyed living in nature. They enjoyed, being on their own, but they just weren't able to do a lot of the things that they used to be able to do when they were 30 years younger. And so, I figured out, what can I do to be helpful to folks that are retired, that are slowing down in life, that want to maintain their independence, and, remain in the home of their choice, their retirement area of their choice, for as long as they could, before they had to leave because of, health issues, mobility issues, things like that. So that was the problem that I identified in my area. A lot of old folks living on fixed incomes that really needed help around the house. So then I had to identify, what solution can I bring to help address this problem? And so I sat down, looked at my skill sets, figured, I'm pretty good at talking to people. I'm pretty good dealing with folks, especially older folks. I've been living in this area now for right now, some 25 years. So you get used to dealing with older folks when you've been living in a retirement area for a long period of time. And so I figured, yeah, I'm good with dealing with retired folks. I can push a lawnmower. I can do lawn jobs. One of my first jobs that I got working for somebody else was, working with a local plumber. So I did that for a few months, learned some basic plumbing. Not much to it. It's not rocket science. The guy explained it to me real clear. Payday's on Thursday, and the stuff don't flow uphill. You remember that, you'll go far in this business, he said. But anyway, I knew some basic plumbing. I did a lot of basic plumbing in that 6-month period that I worked for that guy. Got my practice in digging a whole lot of ditches. So I thought, okay, and I wasn't a bad carpenter either at that time, so I figured, okay, I can do lawn care. I can help keep, the lawns trim, mown, looking nice. I can do odd jobs around the property, and that's basically what I had, my abilities as I saw them. And I thought, I think I can be pretty helpful to a lot of the people around here. And so what my next step was, once I figured out, okay, what the problem that I saw was, what I could offer as a solution, my next step, of course, was making sure I had the tools needed to get started. And, that's really, I just gathered up the tools that I needed. I had a lawnmower, had a weed whacker, had some nippers, clippers, had a station wagon, had some basic tools. I had a gas can. I threw all that stuff in the back of my station wagon and figured, okay, all I need to do now is figure out, I've got the tools, I've got the solution, I know what the problem is, now how do we monetize this? And that was, thinking back, really one of the more difficult steps for me, because up to that time, I had been so used to working for minimum wage that I thought, well, I'll just charge by the hour. But the problem is that when people want you to come over and do a job, they want you to bid it out. They don't want to hear, well, I'll charge you, $8-10 an hour, and I'll try to get the job done as fast as I can. No, they want to know a definite price. And so that was my first challenge, is monetizing my solution, figuring out how to make a bid. So what I did in that area to help me grow is that my parents, who were alive at that time, had 3 acres of land. And, like a lot of other folks in the neighborhood, they needed a little bit of help getting that stuff done. So I got my mower out, and I timed myself on mowing 1 acre of land on a hot July day. Just was out there figuring out, okay, how long is it going to take me pushing this mower and running my tail off to get about 1 acre of land mown. And I figured out the time that it took me. Figured out at that time I was pretty fast, still pretty strong. So figured out, okay, I can do it in this amount of time. And I'm going to figure out, okay, 1 hour of my time is worth, $8-10 an hour. I know I was letting myself go pretty cheap in those days. And then I factored in, okay, how much gas am I going to be spending? How much gas and oil am I going to be, spending, taking me to and from these jobs? And just factored all that stuff in. And then I had a basic formula that I could use for, making a bid. And some jobs I bid in pretty well, made some nice money. Other jobs I underbid. But I made it work. So yeah, that's how I monetized my solution. Just gathered together the materials, figured out, do I have the materials as well as the talent to provide this service, to give this solution to the folks who need it, and then figured out, okay, what price tag do we put on it? How much do I have to charge in order to keep myself going, in order to keep myself profitable, but make it, low enough to where people living on fixed incomes could afford my service. So kind of a fine line there that I felt I had to walk. But, I hit on a way of doing it and managed to successfully do that. And then my final step in the business was, once I figured out what the need was, what I could do to help people, solve that problem, solve that need. And once I figured out how much I was going to charge for it, and worked on the fine art of, giving people a quote, giving them a bid, quoting them a price, my next step was to advertise. And for for me, it was pretty simple. Nothing online. This was work in the real world. So what I did, I just figured out the two areas I wanted to work in. I figured out, okay, what's in a 30-mile radius from me, because that was about as far as I was willing to travel. And then I targeted two small-town newspapers, and I placed ads in both of those newspapers. And the first week, my phone started ringing, and I started advertising. What was it, about April? About when the season is, people are starting to think about gardening, thinking of seeing the grass grow, and thinking, I need to find somebody to help me out with this stuff. So I started advertising about April, and the first week that I placed ads, the phone started ringing, and I got in my station wagon and got out there, looking over property, making bids, and, some folks did very well with, they were happy. Other folks, quoted a price they thought I was outrageous. But I'll never forget two customers that I had. Two sweet little old ladies, let's just call them. First one, she wasn't really retired yet. She was still living up in the big city, as we like to call it down here in the small country. And she was using her little house in the country as her weekend place. And she had money. I mean, I really was so used to dealing with folks that were living on a fixed income and not doing very well. But, this lady had money. But my mindset was that when I went to talk to her, I was dealing with a lady that was living on a fixed income. And I was trying to quote her the lowest price I could really feel that I could live with. And this lady showed me her property and said, okay, I want this done, I want this done, I want this done. And we walked the property together. And then she asked me, how much is it going to cost me to have you do this work for me? And I quoted her my price. And my price was my price that I would whip out for folks that were living on a fixed income that I felt didn't have much money. And that was the price I quoted her. I didn't tell her that, of course. I just quoted her my price. And she looked at me and she said, that's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. And I looked at her and said, well, I'm sorry, but that's the best I can do. I can't work for anything lower than that. And she said, oh, no. You don't understand. You're giving me a price that is way too low. I'll double that price. And will you work for me if I double that price that you just gave me? And I looked at her and said, well, okay, yeah, I'll do that, sure. And that was part of, I don't really want to call it the game, but part of our relationship that I had with that lady for about a couple of years, is that she would call me up, want me to do something, and once she got to know me, she knew, okay, this guy can do it, this guy's good for it, we don't have to haggle about price before he does the job. And so, yeah, she just let me go ahead to do the work that needed to be done at that time. And then she'd invite me into the house, we'd sit down at the table, and she'd say, okay, how much do I owe you? And I'd throw out a price, and then she'd sit down, she'd double it, write the check for that amount and hand me the check and just smile. And I mean, she was really happy with my work, but you see, the thing was, and this is part of the monetization problem that some folks are going to have, is that she was thinking in terms of what would this job cost me? if I were hiring somebody up in the city to do it. And she wasn't thinking like, country folk. She was thinking like city folk on a city budget, and she had the money to pay for a city budget. And when she was hiring somebody in the country to do that work for her, our cost of living down here, quite a bit lower. Taxes, oh my God, very, very low compared to what I was paying when I was living in the city. And so, we just think a little lower. But when I saw her, this took me over a year to figure out. But when I saw her and saw, what she was able to pay and the kind of work she wanted and how happy she was with the work, I should have told myself I can be charging more for this job. But I didn't. I just factored everybody in at the same rate. And, she was having none of that. She was thinking, okay, she needed the work done. This is what it would cost me in Kansas City to get the work done. So I'm going to double this guy's quote and pay him what I think he's worth, even if he doesn't think he's worth that much. So, a problem with monetizing your solution, get a good idea of the value. And the real value of your service. And then price that service accordingly. And not everybody's going to be able to pay your price. But, those that will pay it happily. And those who can't, if you can come down a little bit to be of service to them, and you want to do that, fine. That's the path that I chose. Because my second experience that I had, working for another little old lady who was a gem. And this was a lady that really personified the whole purpose of my business. Is that this was a lady, she had a 1-acre spread out in, near one of our small towns. It's within a 30-mile radius of where we live. And she was up in her, at that time, probably 80s. And she could not do much around the house. She definitely did not have the ability to take care of 1 acre of lawn. And so I was contacted by one of her grandkids. And he saw my ad in the newspaper. And he said, look, I want you to go out there. We talked on the phone. Go out there to my grandma's property. See if you can, what you would charge to mow this property. And then call me back, give me a bid, and we'll see what we can work out. So I went out there. I figured out, okay, I think I can do this with my current machinery, current equipment. Probably do this in a couple of hours. Still have time to spare. So I figured in my bid, my quote, called him up, shot him a price, and he said, great, you've got the job. And I went out there and met the lady I was working for, and she was the sweetest, loneliest little old lady that I've seen in a very long time. And she was just out there in the country. She did not have very many neighbors around, not very many good neighbors around that she felt she could talk to. So she needed somebody to talk to, as well as needing somebody to do her lawn work. So what I would do is that I was working a couple of jobs at the time. So I figured, okay, when I had the day off from my primary job, and was focused on working the home-based business, I would go out to spend time with her, and I started taking my wife along with me, because my wife was, she's a great people person, and she enjoyed talking with her, and we worked out an arrangement where about, once a week or once every couple of weeks, I'd be going out there with my wife, and I'd be out there mowing the lawn, and she and the lady would be sitting out in the front yard with lawn chairs and iced tea or lemonade and be talking and visiting. And, one point my wife even took her crochet work out there, and the lady we were working for, she brought out her knitting, and, they were just having a great time. And I was out there sweating my tail off, and they were visiting. And so the lady felt that she was getting exceptional value, because she liked the way I did the work, and she liked having somebody to visit with while I was doing the work. And so, yeah, we solved multiple problems for her just with one business. And the saddest part of this was the last time I saw her. I went out there. I'd been paid to do, mow lawn for her that week, and went out there and found that her kids were there. And they were packing up. They were helping her move. I didn't know anything about this. This was a decision that had come up suddenly because Our Lady had taken a fall in the house. She was like 80-something. I mean, upper 80s at this point. She was losing her mobility, and the kids figured, okay, it's time. We need to move you closer to us. So it was time for her to make the move out of her retirement area, out of her little country paradise, and back up into the city where she could be getting all the care, all the medical services that she needed, and where the kids could be keeping an eye on her and taking care of her. So went out there to mow the lawn and ended up saying goodbye instead. And it's kind of a bittersweet time, but I could see that, Catherine, our Lady, was happy with the situation. She knew she really couldn't keep her independence that long, much longer. But, for 2 years, my wife and I, working with that lady, we helped her stay in her own home. We helped her maintain her independence. And we managed to make a partial living out of providing that kind of service. And so that makes me feel proud just thinking back with just that one client, is that, yeah, there was a problem there that we had the resources to solve. And we were able to monetize that solution that we offered in such a way that she was happy to, she actually wasn't paying for it. Her grandson was paying for it. And he was happy with it, and when he saw the work I was doing and how I was doing it, I mean, he was just scratching his head. Figured, how can this guy work this hard for so little? But, she was happy. He was happy. We were happy. We had, made a fairly good business out of it. Yeah, I underbid that job looking back. But the quality that we provided, the service that we provided, the extra 2 years that we probably gave that lady living in her own home, I would say that's well worth it. Something to definitely be proud of. So if you're thinking about building a home-based business, you can follow this 3-step formula and then kind of flesh it out and learn as you go. You don't have to have everything done perfectly before you get started, but just kind of plan it out. Identify a real problem that you can solve, and then figure out what's your solution, and then monetize your solution. And then once you feel like, okay, you've got the monetization part done, you're confident that your solution will work, you can provide that solution at a reasonable price, at a fair price, a price that's good for you and good for your clients, then get out there, get your business out in front of people, advertise. And if that means advertising in traditional newspapers, if you got a job that is face-to-face, dealing with folks in the real world, then, newspaper advertising might work for you. Online advertising, so many different avenues to go with in online advertising. Create a Facebook page, do whatever, advertise in Google Business. You can do that for free, and just get the word out there. And then once you got all those first 3 steps in place, you should start doing some business. But yeah, identify a problem, build a solution, monetize that solution, and take that solution out into the wider world. And focus not just on making money. Everybody's doing that. But what's going to make you special in the world? Focus on making money plus doing some good in the world. Bring value to the world, and the world will bring value back to you. You reap what you sow, in other words. So that's all for today. Thanks for dropping by. Tomorrow, what are we going to do tomorrow? Tomorrow, we're going to focus on folks that are into network marketing or thinking about getting into network marketing. I've got a presentation that I'm preparing based on the book by Mark Yarnell, Your First Year in Network Marketing. And I'm just going to focus on your first week in network marketing. Things that I feel you should be doing in your first week of network marketing. And we'll get into that Tuesday. Until then, thanks for dropping by. I am going to close out with a song by Hunter and the Dirty Jacks, Rock and Roll Soul. We will see you tomorrow.
Young man, take a look at me now. I'm down to play today. You can string me up and bring the crowd. That's all I need to say. Voice of an angel, entertainment for a king. No rhythm to speak. I wish to God you could sing. Modern Helen of Troy in a real world style. Could start a religion with a launch code smile. And I was born with a rock and roll soul. Here's what I need. Make me whole. Yeah, I was born with a rock and roll soul. Here's what I need. Make me whole. Yeah. Check out. Yeah, bow. Yeah, bow. Young man, need to find my way to bring this to the top. I got the locks and the golden chops. There's no way this won't pop. Young man, I'm ready to roll. I'm gonna storm this stage tonight. Just play this song. It won't take long to see our name and dancing. I was born with a rock and roll soul. Here's what I need. Make me whole. I was born with a rock and roll soul. Here's what I need. Make me whole. Let's go. Open bar. Yeah, yeah. Baby, down. Bow, bow, bow. I was born with a rock and roll soul. Here's all I need to make me whole. I was born with a rock and roll soul. Here's what I need to make me whole. Yeah, I was born with a rock and roll soul. Here's all I need to make me whole. I was born with a rock and roll soul. Here's all I need.